Derek Brown. Good to see you, my friend.
Hey, good to see you, Jay.
All right. So you have this new book out, and this is like an Etude book where people can learn how to do some of the techniques that you have made famous, but it's like a starter. It's like not scary. It's like anybody can do this. Is what you told me. Anybody can do this stuff.
Yes, anybody. Yeah. So I've had sheet music of some of my solos that I have on YouTube on my website that I've had up there for a long time. But it's like pretty challenging stuff, with all the slap tonguing, double tonguing, and like it took me a year to learn how to slap tongue. So I wanted to have something that like starts from the beginning, because I'm a big believer. I think you are too, Jay, of like, you don't have to wait to improvise until you like reach a certain level. You can improvise now. Like you can make music now, any level you are. And so I think you can actually like do beatbox sax right now. There are some simple techniques like the percussive pop that I'd love to talk with you and maybe show you a little bit of today that like anybody can learn in 5 minutes. That is still a cool sound.
Okay, because when you told me about this book, this is what you told me. And I said, okay, you're going to have to prove it because you're going to have to show me how to do this. I've never done any of these pops or slap tongues or anything. So we could try it.
Let's try it. So again, this is not going to be slap tonguing, and I do slap tonguing all the time. That's where you're doing this thing where your tongue is on the reed and you make a suction and you have to like make this plunger shape just perfectly, and you pull down the reed and it slaps against the mouthpiece. It sounds like this. You can also do an open slap that has that percussive sound. We're going to do a sound. What I'm going to teach you in 5 minutes, I'm telling you, is something that sounds very much like that open slap, but I call it a percussive pop, and it actually doesn't even use the tongue at all. So I don't know. Do you have a tongue, Jay? You don't need one.
I have a tongue.
Okay, well, it can't hurt. Should we jump right into it?
Well, yeah. Well, first, yeah, and then I'll ask you questions about it.
Okay. So all I'm doing with this sound, I'm just doing this like what you would do with your lips when I go, where I'm kind of closing my mouth tight and then releasing a bunch of air when I open my mouth. And that's what I'm going to do on the mouthpiece. Now, the challenge is, it's not even a challenge. The thing is, you have to bite down on the mouthpiece, kind of maybe harder than you would normally bite. So you're going to actually close off the reed just with the pressure of your bite so that no air can get through. And then you're going to build up air behind. So you're biting down and you can't push air through. You could even try that. Just feel how much you have to bite and then push air and no sound gets through. And then all you're really going to do is you're then going to drop.
Do you have your tongue? Do you have your tongue on the reed?
Tongue does not matter. Tongue is not on the reed. Yeah, tongue is just relaxing. It's just chilling. So it's just biting down.
So what is holding the air back, though?
So what's holding the air down is you're actually closing off the reed with the pressure of your bite. And this is why I sometimes recommend, like if someone's learning the beatbox kind of percussive stuff, it is a little bit easier with a more closed tip mouthpiece. I know a lot of jazz musicians love their really open mouthpieces. You can still do it on that. You just maybe have to bite a little bit harder, but you're actually just biting down so no air can get through, just like if you're closing your mouth. And so you're going to do that. And then kind of when you're building air, then you drop your jaw. And that's the part that feels the strangest. It feels wrong because it is wrong. You would never do that playing saxophone. You would always have your nice firm embouchure. Here you're actually going to drop your jaw while shooting air through. And usually people who struggle doing this, they're just afraid to commit to that idea of actually dropping the jaw because it feels so weird. And so they'll just be like, And if you don't drop the jaw, you're going to get a tone. And the last important thing is while you're dropping your jaw, you actually have to try to keep this is the fanciest lingo that I'll get. Keep the reed engaged. Keep the vibrating of the reed engaged, meaning you're just going to have to blow just like a hair of a second longer than you think. Because if you stop blowing air as soon as you open your mouth, no sound is going to happen. You're going to go, and that's what I hear some people do. So while you're dropping your jaw, you actually have to keep blowing air for a split second more so that the reed still vibrates. And if you do those things correctly, it should sound something like this, where there isn't really a pitch. That's what we're going for. We're going for kind of a snare drum percussion sound instead of a tone. You should get something like this. Now, if I'm doing this with a group of sax students, I'll say, if you're doing this correctly, this should sound like a group of chickens. So, Jay, I want to hear your best chicken impersonation. Let's see if you can get a sound. And you have to do it a little bit more violently than you think.
Okay.
Totally.
That was
okay.
like a chicken. That was like I stepped on a chicken.
A rubber chicken. Any kind of chicken is great. A rubber chicken that you're stepping on is great. That's basically it.
Okay, but we want to get less of a tone though.
Correct. And there's a couple of things for that. And first of all, if anyone's watching this, and I hope
somebody's watching it.
Yes, and I hope they're watching it with their saxophones, because I've seen so many of your videos, and I'm like, those are great ideas, and then I go to the next video and I don't do anything with it. The best way to watch these Better Sax videos is with your saxophone in your hand. So grab your saxes, everybody. And if anyone's having trouble, like first of all, by the way, just the fact that you got that wah, like that's like you're like there practically. And it's just going to be like, you've got the idea, and now it's just going to be over the time when you just do that more and more, you'll hear that
5 minutes is almost up though, Derek.
No, but that's basically it. That's basically it. Cause I'm telling you. So, and here's the other deal. Like, you can make anything that kind of seems nasty into a percussive sound. So like, let's say, like a multiphonic, let's see, like that sound, kind of gross. A lot of people are like, ugh. You hear these like very esoteric, classical, avant-garde. They'll do like these 10-minute pieces just with these multiphonic sounds that kind of sound like someone, dragging their nails across.
Man, I love that. What are you talking about? I love that stuff.
That's mainly what you do. That's why we listen to you, Jay. Yeah. No, but you can make anything sound hip or cool. Like, just put a rhythm to it. So like with that multiphonic, like that could be, something like that. You can turn it doom gat. So even that squawk sound that you made, what? I'm telling you, do this. Play like a C. Just go C and then do that pop sound. C, pop. There you go. Yeah. So already that sound that you're doing, already, like, you can tell, even though there's a little pitch to it, still it has this percussive quality. It's just like it's like a higher, like it's like one of those piccolo snares or something. A couple other tips though, as you're doing these, messing around with this, because like I said, you basically have it. I'm going to say you're done. You got it. Ding, ding, ding.
I got it. Well, I should probably practice it a little bit more.
We can finesse it.
I made it.
We can finesse it. So a couple things. First of all, also where you finger it on the horn actually does make a difference. Check this out. When I do it, because you'll hear a little bit of a tone, as I put more fingers down and lower the pitch, listen to what happens to the tone. You can kind of hear that pitch change. So I like that higher, but you could experiment with more fingers down. I mean, you could, if you really want it to be loud, you could finger a low B flat and do it. And you get that sound. On the tenor especially, I like the higher fingerings. But can I give you one other explanation of a different approach to this?
Please.
Okay, so I found this has been pretty effective. Like if I'm with a group of students and half of them can't get it as quickly as you did, Jay, and so the technique is here. Now I have to be careful because I'm in this apartment and people are already so annoyed at me right now through these thin walls. But what we're gonna do is we're just gonna play an open C sharp, and we're gonna crescendo as loud as we can. And when you get to the loudest where you're pushing the most air through, that's when we're going to drop our jaw. And once again, it's going to feel wrong because you would never drop your jaw while playing a note. But listen what happens to the pitch when I drop my jaw. You hear how it kind of like, wah, it just kind of like spreads into thin air. Wah. And so, yes, there is like still a pitch, you're like hearing the pitch drop, but because it's happening so fast, it kind of gives it's almost like an auditory illusion that it's percussive. I think like a cymbal almost, where there's actually pitches, there's almost like there's infinite pitches. So that, so if you can, so actually, can you just try that, Jay? Just go, wah. And when you're as loud as you can, just throw that jaw down and keep blowing for a second.
Okay, I'll try.
Yeah. And do it one more time and even a split second longer. Like you have to blow just while you're dropping your jaw. Wah! Keep blowing for a split second more. That one got a little squeak. Do one more. Do it a little bit shorter. Just go, wah! There you go. So what we're trying to capture here is that last split second of that wah, wah, wah. And so what you do now is you do what we just did, the wah, and you just make it shorter and shorter, just focusing on that last bit when you drop the jaw. And so you go, and anybody watching can do this with me. So like, and then if when you get to the end, if you add a little bit of a bite right before you do it, and there it is. And there's
okay,
that
so that's like another approach to get the same sound.
Yeah. And if you don't need to do that, if you can just get it with, a lot of people can just get it like with the, and I would encourage too, if people have different saxophones, try it on other ones. Like sometimes I do think maybe on the tenor, it's easier to get it's a little bit lower. I mean, I could just play it on the tenor so you can hear what that sounds like. So, well, there's that sound. And here's the dropping the pitch. Now that with the low B flat, I think that's too low. So once again, I like the open C sharp. And once again, here's the thing where, okay, when you're just doing this, and to anybody trying this at home, your parents are going to be like, what? Why are you watching these terrible videos that are making you sound like a chicken? What is Jay teaching you? And then, okay, yeah, out of context, it sounds really horrible. And that's actually one of the things I love about extended techniques, working on these extended techniques, it gives you the chance, someone like you or I, Jay, who have been playing for decades, we practice so much that over the years, it's like, am I getting better? We don't see the progress, right? As much. It's hard to see the progress when we've already gotten to a certain point. But if you start over on something like a slap tonguing or this percussive pop, yes, you're going to sound horrible. You're going to sound like a very, very beginning fourth grader who has just picked up the horn. You're going to sound worse than that trying to get these pop sounds. But the addictive part is when you do it the next day, you're going to be like twice as good as you just were that day before. And then if you stick with it, you do it for a week and you are twice as good as you were that second day. And then you do it for a month and you are twice as good as you were that week later. Like if you told me I could work on something and I'd be twice as good of a sax player, like, oh my gosh, that would be worth $1 million, to see the growth. And so that's that thing again about extended techniques that, yeah, you have to kind of humble yourself and be able to be willing to make these kind of like awkward sounds. But if you stick with it, you will improve. Like you'll see that growth. And that to me is so addicting to just feel like, wow, I'm actually way better than I was a week ago. And I can't say that about general sax playing, So So that's one thing about the growth with this. Like it's so addicting. But then where the real fun comes, and this is a really important step, is you have to start making music with it as soon as you can. Because otherwise, if you just practice these pops, it's always going to sound horrible. It makes a great gimmick. It annoys your band teachers. It's and actually, just a funny quick story. I was teaching some middle schoolers, a group of middle school sax players, this technique, which is kind of a dangerous thing to do sometimes. And I remember leaving that day and being like, I don't know, like, are they old enough to do that? Is that just going to annoy their band director? And the next day I got a text from the band director, and it said, and the text said, oh, it was a video text. And I hit play, and it was just his whole section just going, sounding like a group of chickens. And I was just like, oh my gosh, is this what I've done? Is this my legacy on the world that I've left? And he sent another word. It said, thanks, period. And I was just like, oh. But then he sent another text, and it said, but you know what? They actually took their horns home and practiced this stuff. I was like, hey, for middle schoolers to take their horns home, that's a win. And then the next day he sent another text, and it was of a video of once again of this fifth grader, and he had composed a song using that pop technique. And I was like, I didn't write a song until I was like 24 years old. So once again, if you can actually start making music with this, like it'll get you excited. It might open up some new window or door of kind of excitement about what the saxophone can do. So what do you think? Could we try to make music with this, Jay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So in this Beatbox Sax Etudes book that I have that I'm selling on my website, that's the whole point of this. It's not just introducing each technique, but I introduce a technique like the pop, and then I immediately follow it with a song, an etude that actually tries to make good music with this. And one of the big points of making this sound is not to sound like a chicken, is not to annoy your band director. It's to sound like you're accompanying yourself, like you're a drum beat. And the number one way I do that is doing that pop on 2 and 4. In jazz, you have the hi-hat click, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or in pop music, which is maybe my biggest influence, doom ka, doom doom ka, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm always pretty much, I shouldn't say this, but if you go back and listen to any of my Beatbox Sax tunes, every stinking song has one of these pops or an open slap on beat 2 and 4, just because I just cannot. Life is not long enough to get sick of a backbeat for me. So I will always just put backbeats on there. Even when I'm writing these classical pieces that I'm now doing, they have backbeats on 2 and 4. I just don't get sick of it. So the best way to start this is to try mixing this pop sound with kind of what we already did with regular notes and alternating. So let's just do what we did before, where we play a C pop.
C, you want me to play too?
Pop. Yeah, I'll do it first. And then I'll just show you. So once again, I'm just doing the regular embouchure, C, and then I'm going to do the pop, which means I'm going to have to drop my jaw. Now, once again, with the fingering, you could finger a C sharp or just keep a few fingers. It doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal. But the big thing is you have to fully commit to that pop sound. And the other thing I'll say is you have to be in a place, it takes a little bit of confidence. I usually call it fake confidence, of just being like, this sounds horrible and I don't care. And I'm just going to play it loud. And I don't care if you're listening. You have to risk sounding really bad. Just go for it. Make those pops as loud as you can and as nasty as you can. Make it sound like the ugliest chicken you can imagine. And if you do that over time, then you'll be able to finesse it rather than hesitating and going, afraid of offending someone or afraid of sounding bad. And like I said, you have to humble yourself to do these techniques. You have to just pop. You just have to make an ugly sound. It's kind of like when I was first learning to compose music for the first time. That word is such a fancy word. When I wanted to write a tune, I was like, I can't write something as good as Chris Potter or Michael Brecker, who I listen to. And so I had to tell myself, okay, here's your goal, Derek. This week, every day, you're going to write one crappy tune. And that word crappy was really important for me, because if I said you're going to write one tune a day, I'm going to be like, this isn't even a tune. It's 4 bars long. Forget it. And then I'll give up. But if you say, write one crappy tune today. Okay, I wrote something. It was 6 bars long. Oh, I've heard this a million times. Perfect. It was a crappy tune. Nice job. Next day you do it. Okay, another crappy tune. But that third day or fifth day, it's like, that actually wasn't so bad. And I don't think I ever would have gotten to that if I hadn't given myself the permission to do that. So the same thing with this. Give yourself permission to just sound like a kindergartner on a saxophone. Sound like a dying chicken. That's your goal. Sound like, I should call it Beatbox. I should call it dying chicken saxophone etudes to encourage that. That's what I'll call the next one. So once again, I'm going to play a regular note. I'm just going to play a C, pop, C, and I'm going to really exaggerate the bringing down of the jaw. The last thing I'll say with this is at the beginning, it does take a little bit more oomph than you might think, more dropping of the jaw. But later on, you'll see it doesn't take that much, because watch this. So at first I would say, really throw that jaw down so you get used to that movement and really blow. But over time, check this out, how fast you can go. Or you can see I'm barely moving that jaw. You can even do a thing where you can make it sound like you're doing a pop and a note at the same time. Because I'm just doing it so quick and following it with another note. But that's getting into another technique. This is getting too advanced. That's another thing in the book, though. But all this to say, okay, I just have too many things to say about this. Sorry. So let's just do it. We're going to do the note and then the pop. So, and you're picturing in your head, you're imagining 1, 2, 3, 4. Jay, you want to try that? Drop that jaw. Yeah. Yeah. And again, yes. That was getting better as you. So when you first started, you were kind of hesitant. You were kind of like barely moving the jaw. And once again, think of it like a squeak. Think of it like a squawk. You're just going for loud. In the Etude book, maybe I probably should have put this like piano note and then just fortissimo pop. Just go for it. Make it sound like a squawk. And if ever you feel like you lose it, because I feel like right when you just started, it wasn't there a little bit, and then it slowly got back. Just go back to that whole idea of that. Or just the, just making that sound. And then once again, as soon as you get it, plug it into music, start making some things. And then I have some like simple kind of like practice exercises that you can do. So it's just gradually getting more comfortable with this pop. So it's doing things like going up a scale, and then in between each note, you do a pop. So let's do it. I'll do a G scale. So G major. When you get comfortable with that, try something else. Try maybe putting eighth notes in between. Any scale. And once again, if it goes, that's actually cool. That's actually cooler than what I was doing there. Like any sound. If people knew, here's the truth. If people knew how much I made mistakes when I perform live, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be invited anywhere. You would not have me on this show, Jay. When I'm doing my solo show all the time, I'm squeaking all the time, but it's hidden. And I think this is true in jazz improvisation. How many quote unquote wrong notes, did John Coltrane hit on some solo? We'll never know, because that's the cool thing about music is there's such freedom that as long as you have this, once again, this like fake confidence that I love to talk about, if you just present it like this is what I'm supposed to do, then people don't know. And then with this percussive style, it turns your squeaks into something desirable. Any different sound is like a cool, whoa, what was that? There's like a rumor that a legend that Miles Davis would maybe like, because you sometimes hear his little cracks in his trumpet. There was like a legend that he was maybe even trying to do that. I don't really buy that, but that like this idea of like, it's so frail. It's like a fine piece of glass that could break any moment, and it just makes the solo that much more precious. You know, it doesn't matter what he thought or not. Like we believe that he meant to do that. And so once again, it's just that idea of any sound. The biggest thing, and you know this as well. I've seen some of your videos where rhythm is king. Rhythm is everything. So when you're doing these exercises or these etudes, the most important thing is that you just keep that rhythm going. Because if you do it just sounds like you're hitting something different on a drum set, which is cool. But if you go then it's obvious. I'm not feeling that. And so if you hit it or don't, doesn't even matter. And then the cool thing too about learning this beatbox sax style is there's other sounds too that are like pretty simple. Like one of the other sounds, I call it a hi-hat click, and I'm just going, or something called I call it an air puff. I'm just blowing air through the horn, and I drop my jaw so like half the air escapes. It's almost like the sound that you get if you don't really commit to the pop. But like that, you can just do that on any song. It's cooler when it's through the horn, but all that to say is you can do any of those sounds, and if you do it with enough conviction and you just go for it, it starts to groove, and it kind of opens a new window into like a way of playing the saxophone that a lot of people maybe haven't considered. So the last thing I'll do is can I just show one of the etudes and show how you might play this? Okay, so this is etude maybe like number 5, which you can see. Look, there isn't a single 16th note on here. This is pretty simple, and this is working on these pops, and you can see I labeled it right here. If I can I zoom in? I can. So I just put that little X note head. Anytime you see that, I'm doing that pop. I also have, so this etude actually is a little bit further, and it introduces something I call screaming into the horn. This little woo. So that's just woo, just woo, which is, like I said, any sound you can think of, you can turn it into something rhythmic. But as you can see here, look at these pops are on beats 4, and then I have other notes in between. Let me just play a little bit of this beginning stuff. So at A. And you guys see where, once again, I'm at A right here at this B flat part. Woo! And then I get a little bit away from it. And then you can see one other section where I get into C, because the other element, now some of you might say, okay, that's cool. That doesn't sound 100% like Derek's beatbox sax thing. And of course, you're not going to just like master that in one day. You better not, or I'd be really jealous. But one of the other most important parts of my kind of what I consider the beatbox sax thing is adding kind of like bass notes where you play low notes and then you do high melody notes. So it's like you're doing 2 lines at once. And that occurs in a simplified form at this section C here. If I zoom in a little bit, here you can see I do this low note, do, dip, pa, and then I do the percussion. So it's mixing bass notes with high notes, doing the melody and percussion. And this part at C, which is actually not note-wise, it's not hard to play, sounds like this. And then I go to some more lyrical stuff. So that all makes sense what I'm doing there?
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Sounds great.
So
Sounds
thank
awesome.
you. And can you see how simple that is? I mean, yes, to finesse that pop sound, takes a little bit of time, but like this is not difficult stuff here, like the notes that I did.
Yeah.
Now, as I go on with this, like you can see by the end, because I actually call this Beatbox Sax Etudes beginner to advanced. By the end here, you can see all the different things I'm going, where we've got some stomps happening, we've got these hi-hat clicks, we've got some kind of double-tongued clicks, pop with pitches. But again, this whole book actually doesn't even get into slap tonguing, just because I'm saving that one for volume 2, kind of the advanced idea. But even something like this, check out this one more. So here's Auld Lang Syne, public domain song. This has a bunch of public domain songs because I'm too cheap to pay royalties. But like, check it out. So here's how a sax player would normally play Auld Lang Syne. If you look at the beginning. Okay, nice. That's what we normally do. But now it's like, well, I think we could do more than that. Maybe we can accompany ourselves. Maybe we can do a little bit of percussion in the background. And maybe we could even do the bass notes on the downbeats. So here at this B section, see if you can hear Auld Lang Syne in the melody. 1, 2, 3. I'll stop right there. So once again, like, I'm just playing one note at a time, folks. That's it. That's all we can do on the saxophone. It's kind of a limitation. I used to be sad by that, but now it actually invigorates me, because that limitation kind of forces me to get a little bit more creative and think, okay, I can't play a bass note at the same time as the melody note, but maybe if I move the melody note a little early, like this, do-da, I move that a little bit early and then do the bass note on the downbeat, then you can kind of imagine it happening at the same time. And then if on all those beats 2 and 4, instead of playing the melody note, maybe I shift the melody note and 8th note. I do those pops on 2 and 4. And it sounds like you have melody, bass, and drums at the same time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Beatbox Sax. Curtain closes. No, in a simplified form.
Yeah, man. Well, that's great. Hey, does this book, if people buy your book, does it come with recordings of these?
It does. Yes. I'm glad you asked. I just did the simplest way. There is a link at the beginning of this book, and it goes to a YouTube playlist that has me playing every one of these etudes on both alto and tenor. So you can hear exactly what it's supposed to sound like. But again, I just want to encourage people, like, the biggest thing is just play in time, and who cares? And so forth.
No, but I like what you said about when you're a beginner at something, whatever it is, you learn so much faster. And, you know, I went skiing this year. Last time I went skiing, I was 9, and I was a total beginner. And I was thinking about it. And by the end of the day, I'm like going down.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I was like, oh, it's so great to be a beginner. And I try to tell people the same thing, like, it's the best time. When you're a beginner, it's the best time, because that's when you get good fast.
And some people think it's the opposite. They think like, oh, it's going to be frustrating because it'll be hard. But dude, like, you will learn so fast. Like, you won't know. And especially the saxophone, like, compared to the violin, you just, like, anybody, once you get a sound, it's pretty easy to get those notes compared to like a violin where, like, where do I put my fingers exactly or something? Yeah. And so I would say the same thing with this. You get a basic sound like you got, Jay, at the beginning, and just start plugging that in. And the cool thing about the human body is you don't even have to know exactly what you're doing. You just go with those pops, go with whatever it sounds like. If it's a squawk, if it's a scream, and just the more you play it, your body kind of hears it. And it's just like, it starts making the adjustments, because sometimes it'll notice like, oh, that sounded a little bit better. Oh, that one didn't sound. And then your body automatically, if you're just playing, makes those adjustments. And gradually you're like, oh, wow, this is like sounding kind of cool.
Yeah, man. Oh, I love it. Now that you, showed and gave me that little lesson, I'm gonna try to find some time to learn what it is.
Yeah. Because like I said, so 5 minutes to get the sound, to get the basic building blocks of that sound. Because again, if I was trying to teach you slap tonguing to get like I said, that took me a year to just get that sound. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. Just try it a little bit, every day. But this one, like it took you 10 seconds and you had it. And then it's just, yes, seriously, you had it. Wah. It doesn't matter. Think of a DJ with any of those, like, wah. The first time a DJ like made a scratch on their record, or, that was something to be avoided, just like squeaks are to be avoided on a record play. Oh, it went, and it's just like, oh shoot, did I break the record? And then it took someone to be like, actually, and it's like, that's actually a cool sound. Take it and run with it. Any sound, it sounds percussive. You can make any ugly sound so cool. Just put it percussively and just don't apologize for it. And then you got it. Go.
So where can people get this book if they want to pick it up?
Yeah, it's only available right now at DerekBrownSax.com. And I have a store there, and then you just download it right there. And then
do you have plans for it to be available somewhere else?
I guess, I mean, if a publisher was like, dude, this is amazing. I feel like you have these tendencies too. Like a DIY, do it yourself kind of mentality with so many things. What's that?
Self-publish everything.
Yeah. Because
this is 2024.
Yeah. You get everything back. And so I'm not getting just 10 cents with everything I sell. And yeah, I have a bunch of stuff now that I sell on my website, from like big band music to orchestra stuff to other beatbox sax solos to music. And so it's just like, this is kind of just the place where you get that. But I should say this to put a little fire under my belt. If you can't see my screen right now, right?
No, you want me to show it to you?
Sure. Let's go back to it. This is just to put pressure on me. The last page of it, I shouldn't show this, but I say, coming soon, Volume 2, The Next Level, with slap tongue, double tongue, triple tongue. Volume 3, Beatbox Sax Duets. Volume 4, Christmas. And then here's the big one, which I'm just waiting to see if I have time. If I have time, a free moment to do this, I will do this, and you'll hear about it. But then I also have soon to include other instruments: beatbox clarinet etudes, beatbox trumpet etudes. As a composer I'm studying at University of Southern California right now, a doctorate, and I've been writing some like big band and wind ensemble pieces. And so I'll get with a trumpet, I'll get with a trombone, and I've realized you can actually do a lot of cool percussive sounds that aren't very hard on pretty much any wind instrument. Definitely clarinet. Everybody knows about beatbox flute. I know this is the BetterSax channel, but if there's any trumpet player, better trumpeters out there, you can actually do that pop sound. And it's kind of the same thing with dropping the jaw and kind of pushing air. And so when I get the time, I'll convert these etudes and we'll do beatbox trumpet, we'll do beatbox trombone, we'll do the whole thing. So
yeah,
now I've said it on BetterSax. Now I actually
well, that's one way to make give yourself some extra work to do, some homework.
Yeah. I'm usually just sitting around like, I wish I just had way more work to do. We're always doing that.
Well, I'm looking forward to those. Certainly, probably more beatbox flute. That'll be cool. But that's on. Are those in order that you're going to put them out?
You mean of the instruments?
Yeah.
I don't know the order. Well, honestly, clarinet would probably be first because it's so similar to sax with the reed. You can do anything like that, and then I think flute's almost the obvious one, but I'm excited to kind of get into the brass world and just see if people take it and run. The other thing I would say with this stuff is I see a lot of YouTube videos of like a young person doing something really cool on their instrument, and they're usually like they're like in a band room or something, and all their friends around, they kind of like laugh, and they're doing something goofy, but it's really cool. And then if I look and watch and see if they have any other YouTube videos, they're not doing that thing. They've moved on to something else and they're playing something traditional. And I'm just like, dude, like what you just did was so cool. Like, I want to see more of that. Do more of that. That's not just a gimmick. Like that could be something. I imagine like Leo P doing that huge, we all know what I'm talking about, the big growl on the Barry sax, the didgeridoo, I call it an overtone gliss. People have done that before, but never where they stuck to it with the intensity that Leo P did, where like he does it so much and people can't get enough of it. I can't get enough of it. And so I just want to encourage people, like, find those sounds and like stick with it, turn it into a thing. You know, I have a whole thing about like finding your own voice on the instrument. And that's one of those things, is like, find something that you can really nerd out and geek out about. And you might think it's so silly or stupid, but if you nerd out about it, do it all the time. Yes, there's a time to learn fundamentals, of course, and study traditional stuff, but then put that stuff in, even if you don't know how a chicken squawk could add to music. How could this possibly be musical? It's possible. Put it in there, experiment, make dirty stuff, get dirty in the playground. Fall, like speaking of skiing, you mentioned one piece of advice I gave to my wife, because I've snowboarded kind of since my middle school days, and I took her snowboarding as an adult. And she would go down and she was always kind of going on her back edge, being very careful not to fall. And I said, Rachel, the only way you're going to learn is if you fall. You have to fall. You have to, because otherwise it means you're not really trying hard enough. You're not taking the risk. And no one wants to fall. But so I said to her at the bottom of I was like, she didn't like this, but I was like, did you fall at least once? Your goal is fall one time down this hill, at least once. And if you didn't fall, you weren't trying hard enough. So make those squeaks. If you're not squeaking, if you're not annoying your parents with your saxophone playing, you're not trying hard enough. If you're not annoying I'm going to say it, your band director, you're not trying hard enough. At first, everyone has to annoy their band director first. That's how you get better. If you never annoy your band director or your mom, that means you never actually played the saxophone. Because when we first play, you know, it's gonna sound annoying. You have to go through that. Yeah. And so my challenge is to young people don't have as hard a part of this, but the older people, like I said, humble yourself, sound awkward, be a kid again, get messy, get paint over yourself, and realize the joy of noticing your improvement, the joy of seeing yourself get better day by day. That's an amazing thing.
All right, I'm gonna try it, and
sweet.
And I look forward to.
Could we get an update on that at some point?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have to find the time, but
part two. Okay,
you got me inspired.
Cool.
And it's like I said, it is great to be a beginner at something, whether it's making a different sound or even if it's like, oh, I want to start using this other tool for improvising.
Yeah, or just improvising in general. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take the plunge.
Don't be afraid to do something new. And it's in those new things that we grow faster. And then it kind of helps us grow with the things we've been doing for a long time as well.
Yeah. And it just keeps it fresh and new and fun and not stale, as it can happen so much to people your and my age.
Yeah. Well, hey man, that's fantastic. So what is the title of the book again?
Beatbox Sax Etudes, Volume 1. It's the only volume. Beginner to advanced, but Beatbox Sax Etudes. That's
okay. And
sax.com.
And you're working on putting out some more of these in the not so distant future.
Yes, because I've said it here. I have to start working on those once I get my doctorate and all that stuff. And in the middle of it.
You're doing a doctorate in what? Composition?
In composition, actually, which is crazy. We could have a whole another talk about that, because I used to always be afraid of the composer types, you know, like they're very serious and they know what I'm doing. Every other day I'm like, I'm not a composer. When are they going to realize this? When are they going to kick me out? But I guess the fact that I like to try these weird things in different ways, I guess that makes me a composer.
And so what are you doing? What sort of composing are you doing? All different stuff. I mean, large ensembles, small.
I've moved into that because it took realizing. It was during the pandemic when I was like, I kind of want to I need kind of a new inspiration. I kind of want to go somewhere to school again. I never thought I'd do that at 39. And I was thinking, like, should I go for school for saxophone or jazz? And that was kind of the obvious choice. And I have not mastered either of those things by any means. But I was just like, I kind of want just like a slightly new angle, a new direction. And I was thinking, well, all these like solo sax things, even though I don't think of it like it. They're compositions. I'm composing stuff, and people are actually starting to play these. I've heard people play them on their recitals, some of my solos, and I hope that happens with these etudes, especially like some of the. I mean, actually, any of them. Like I said, you can start at any age, but like those later ones, I could see people doing those on a recital. So, anyways, it was like, I guess I am a composer, and before that, also, I started composing for big bands when I would visit schools, and they'd be like, "Hey, Derek, you want to play with our big band? Do you have any tunes that you've composed?" And it's like, I guess I should try. Once again, I never know what I'm doing with this stuff. I just jump in. That's how you learn. And so I actually then had enough tunes. I made a big band album. And so once again, I decided to go to school, USC, for composition. They amazingly let me in. And then now I've been challenging myself to write something sometimes that I don't even play on. So I have like a wind ensemble piece, like some orchestral stuff, sax quartet stuff, even some stuff that doesn't feature beatbox sax at all. I have learned that there is kind of a common thread through everything, and I am definitely a fan of like percussion, backbeat kind of stuff.
Derek, do you have a beatbox sax quartet?
I do not have one, but I have music where you can kind of hear those elements.
That would be
like for instance, I
fantastic
did
thing.
something at one of the NASA. It was the NASA right before the pandemic with Arizona State University's sax choir called Equilibrium. That's on YouTube. And you can, now that one I'm kind of featured as I'm like the beatboxer, but everybody else is kind of, they're doing like a lot of these pops sounds. They're sometimes singing, they're doing a little bit of double tonguing. That one's kind of an advanced piece, but then I have some other pieces where everybody's doing a little bit of the pops, and yeah, I'm slowly just trying to find the good fit, because again, you might have like the best sax players in the world, and they don't know how to slap tongue, or they don't know how to double tongue. That's especially common in the jazz world, which I think is too bad, because it's just not ever taught in schools. Usually it's taught in the contemporary classical world, and it's used in very avant-garde, dissonant ways. And I don't really love that super just dissonant, just noise. Like I said, though, you can take those
like the
things.
dead chickens, though. Dead chicken
I like
sounds.
the chicken. The chickens were intriguing if they're in time chickens. You got to teach them to be in time. But I am a huge believer you can learn something from any genre, and you can apply that to whatever you do. Even if you do country western, you can apply this stuff, and you can find some, because I think I maybe even probably talked about it in my last podcast with you or episode about like creativity is just connecting things. It's not coming up with something brand new. It's taking a sound that I heard from contemporary classical music, even if that's not necessarily my jam. I still like it, but it's like, it's not what I was listening to as a teenager for fun. But I could take that sound, and I could take the improvisation or the groove elements from jazz, and I can piece them into some way and throw in some cheesy 80 music chord progression, a little bit of chickens. That's totally going to be the title of this episode, isn't it? I can see it. And then you've got something new, and that's, I guess, creative. It doesn't feel creative to me. Literally nothing I do feels creative. It's just, I'm just like putting stuff together by accident, and then people say like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," and so then I run with it, and I think it's cool. And that's the biggest thing. It's exciting for me. I like it. It makes me excited to get up and play the saxophone. It's like, what new explorations. And so anyways, yeah, my next thing is I'm keeping it fresh. I've got to keep it fresh. So my thing is now, what about writing for other musicians? Sometimes with me playing, sometimes not. Sometimes it doesn't work. I'm beating my head every other day. I'm not a composer. What am I doing? But then I'll come across one little thing maybe that I wrote, and I was like, oh, that's cool. What if I have the trumpets do this? And so, yeah, just got to keep it interesting, exciting.
All right, man. Well, it's always great to talk to you. And
likewise,
thank you for sharing some of this from your new book. And I'm looking forward to checking it out. And I'm sure lots of people are going to check it out as well.
And thank you, Jay. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you for humbling yourself and attempting this in front of thousands of viewers. Like literally the first time ever you tried it, it's in front of thousands of viewers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That wasn't, well, we'll see. I mean, if it's different when I'm just doing it in front of a camera. If there were literally thousands of people in front of me, it might have been more difficult.
I feel like you would have done great. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, We'll talk again soon. I hope we'll have to do another one of these.
All right. Hey, best of luck. Keep those chickens alive.